Another question from the manosphere. So earlier I asked you guys about this. It's kind of a growing theory, having a daughter, thinking about how women have a version of nice guy syndrome where they're educated. Culture educates you to be one way. It gives you a lot of validation, attention, even maybe success, but it's maybe not what a typical hetero guy, probably the type of guy you want to be with, the phallical guy would choose in a partner. I realized this is the same thing that men go through. It's just a different type of thing. I've been speaking about this with Nalaya, and it didn't really dawn on her that men kind of see women almost in two categories, kind of related to the Madonna horror complex, but there's also some like biological root. Like the things that make you really want to sleep with a woman aren't the same thing that make you really want to commit. I was curious, what do you think?
Can you just elaborate briefly on what is it that modern culture is telling young women to be?
Being overtly sexual and independent and separate, not needing a man, not needing anybody. And it's not just women. I mean, all of globalist consumer society encourages us to be separate so we pay for more things. But also, I think specifically this does kind of like, in the 90s, way back when, the big narrative around young women was, they're being compared to unhealthy body images on magazines, right? Now it must be worse because you have women making their living on Instagram, OnlyFans, all of these kind of extreme things where the validation is higher. I could only imagine not only this affects body image issues, but the thing that I'm more addressing is men give a lot of attention to women in these situations, but they don't want to invest their vulnerable commitment, let's say, to such a woman. And
which sounds safe, right? If you don't want to be vulnerable and raw, like it's safer, no, to connect with someone who's kind of just for sex.
But not for like actually committing your life to someone.
Okay. But they want to. This is an example where, please.
I think what you're saying, so like, there's a way that women have been taught to portray themselves, which is basically sexy to men, but that isn't the same thing that men are looking for when they start wanting to commit. Mm-hmm. So like women then just like they get this idea like you said overtly sexual, independent,
not needing a
man.
Yeah, independent basically.
Yeah.
But.
And so like when men come to the point where they want to start settling down with a woman, they're not going to find themselves attracted to the women who are this way. So women are receiving this message and they're doing that. And then when they come to settle down with someone, they're finding themselves rejected because of these qualities that have like previously been seen as.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of like specific, this came to my attention initially because I have a lot of female friends who just wanted to sleep around for a while. And there's certain behaviors that made their dating life really prolific. Like they're beautiful, but they also like got a lot of attention from men. But now they want to settle down and they're finding, it's the opposite, which I think is the same thing as like the nice guy thing. It's like, that really sucks. And I only recently have thought about the female side of it. To be rewarded for one thing and then find out it's the opposite in a later stage of life, let's say.
I think it just keeps going back to if someone's having a hard time with dating or connecting to the kind of person that they're looking for or like getting the relationship that they are dreaming of and wishing for. I think again, the answer is just like doing more inner work, like knowing who you are and developing yourself. And when I say that, I mean like, yeah, an example of someone who has been sleeping around, really prolific in their dating life and enjoying it. Yeah, it's like they're into it's consensual, but something shifted in them and they went to experience something else. I think maybe you have to go through some rounds of relationships and kind of clear away and recognize more and more clearly what you don't want, and then really have a space for yourself where you crave and desire what you do want, so that when you recognize it, there's like, you really want to hold on to it. Like you want to cherish it and put energy into that. Or I think also helpful is like celibate, like taking a breather and just putting energy, because there's a lot of energy that goes into dating, whether it's like just casual romantically or deep relationships. It's a lot of energy. So taking your energy back and focusing on your own projects, recognizing what you love, like diving into yourself in some way that brings joy and self-connection, understanding, or You know what I mean? Like finding something. And I think that develops someone in a deeper way that's then a really attractive partner, you know, for like a long-term relationship. And you can still be sexy, right? Like, I don't think it's about like, well, now you should just start dressing like Virgin Mary and speak and never use potty mouth, please and thank you. And yes, I think please and, yeah, anyway. I think keeping like what you learned in your dating life in the sense of like, I like how this feels on my body. This feels good for me. This gives me pleasure, having that power and experience, but then recognizing like, for me, this is respectful. I'm seeking a respectful partnership. Like, what are you seeking in a partner? Because it's going to be different than casually going out. If you want deeper relationships, deeper connection, deeper communication, then evolve that with your friends. Like, recognize what's deeper for you.
Definitely. I think there's always going to be a moment of uncomfortableness when you're shifting from one way of living to another way. So it sounds like it's a shift from, say, you're talking about a shift from dating a lot to wanting to settle down. So there's going to be this point where they meet, where you're starting to feel like you want to settle down, but your habits, you've grown them in that space where you were dating. So you still act like you did in the dating time, and you haven't learned what it is to be the woman you want to be when you want to settle down. And maybe you're talking about, or you're like talking to women in this stage where they don't even know who they are and starting to, who they are, or who they want to be, or what it really looks like to find someone that they're settling with. So they're probably still looking for people that they'll be dating, but trying to convert them into someone that they would settle down with. Mm-hmm. It would be one thing that they're doing, but also the ways that they're going about, the ways they do things, their habits come from before. So there's like, and then there's also the asking themselves, do I actually really want this? I don't know if I want this. They'll be going back and forth in this time. And like you say, like the more they look into themselves and find, actually, I really do want this, I feel like the shift will come naturally the more they look into themselves. But they do need to do the inner work, like look into themselves and ask themselves the questions and go deep, 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 look at their limiting, like core beliefs that may be like stopping them from going into that, to really truly believe that they want that. Because you're going to have a point where you say, I think I want this, but you don't really know what it is. And then to get there is a lot of work. And it's probably the same with men. Just this.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I relate to both. I was sharing earlier that I couldn't connect with my wife when she was in commitment mode and I was in sleep around mode. But actually and then I also ended up in weird relationships when I was trying to do both, as screening women via lust, but then trying to fit someone in a box that didn't make sense. But actually the thing that worked, let's say, is celibacy. I did actually choose to be celibate for 6 months, and it kind of gave me a reset. And that's when I happened to reconnect with my life. Yeah.